Welcome everyone to our Inside the Box lecture series, the spring semester, where we're focusing on transportation design, trying to expand our knowledge about where interior designers work. And it's wonderful to meet Teddy Acero. And I have to thank Dershawn Chow for making the introduction. It's really, thank you so much. Now, Teddy is an architect trained at Pratt in architecture. He has over 25 years of experience in the architecture interiors field, working on high profile hospitality, retail, residential, and corporate interior projects, both domestic and international. He's involved with all phases of the work. He's currently at the Johnson Studio at Cooper Carey, a studio manager and senior project manager. I'm going to give you a few highlights. He worked for Jeffrey Beers International in New York as a senior associate, studio leader, and senior project manager for around 15 years, and worked for about 10 years at the Rockwell Group in New York City, as an associate project manager and architect. These are hard jobs to get. Really, really wonderful companies that you've worked for. And so, we know what an expert you are, and are really pleased that you're here with us. So I hand it over to Teddy. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you, Carol, and good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a great honor to talk to you all, and hopefully I'll be able to share something really interesting today. Okay. I have to say that question all the time, but can you see my screen?
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Looks great.
Okay. Good evening. So it's my pleasure to be here to talk to you. I know most of you have in your last Into the Box session with Francesca from BG Studio. She gave you a great overview of cruise ships and their size, how much they cost, the codes and guidelines and culture of cruise ships. Tonight, I plan to go deeper into the design process of designing interior venues for cruise ships and how it is different, or more appropriately, how similar it is in designing land-based venues. I'll share with you a ship that we actually designed together with Dershawn back when we were in Jeffrey Beers. So I hope you will enjoy it. You may notice that I entitled this talk Ship Stories. This is for two reasons. One is to stress the importance of referring to cruise ships as a ship and not a boat. You know, as mentioned by Francesca in her last talk, we can share our knowledge of the field by using the right terms. Forward and aft instead of front and back, since there's no north or south on a ship. We can also say deck instead of a floor or levels. The second reason for titling it Ship Stories is something I'm sure you have heard before, something I found in my over 25 years of experience to be very important, especially in hospitality design, which is good design. A design that connects and enriches the experience is a design that tells a story. This is why we rent those headsets at the museum or take those guided tours when we go to a new place. We wanted to hear the story behind it. A design can look good and solve all the problems it's given, but if there's no story, a story allows you to connect personally to that experience, to the guests, to that environment. It adds another experience, adds another dimension to that experience. To quote Adam Tihani, having a story is what transforms a beautiful space into an experience that is engaging, meaningful, and most important, memorable. I always believe that best designers are good storytellers. And I learned this from my first hospitality firm that Carol mentioned I worked for, which was the Rockwell Group. And at the Rockwell Group, I started, since I've been working 25 years, it's 25 years ago. Started there back when there were themed restaurants. I don't know if there's still a Planet Hollywood now, but there was also, we also did this Marvel Mania. Yes, there was a Marvel restaurant back in Universal Studios back then in LA. And we also did the Lowe's Theaters, which I think now it's a Regal Theater on 42nd Street. And we did New York Aquarium Cafe in the New York Aquarium. So in the early days of Rockwell Group, the storytelling aspect of the design was right in your face. It's very literal, and it was a very novel idea. David Rockwell was a big lover of theater, and he was one of the pioneers of seeing interior design as stage design and the importance of storytelling. It was this unique design approach that made him into one of the most sought after hospitality design firms in the world today. So as time passed, the clients and projects got more complex, sophisticated. The visuals and storytelling are no longer as literal, but as you can see from the firm's latest works, most of these works were done after I've left, but David's love for theater and being able to tell a story in his designs is still seen in his current work, whether it's an airport, a hotel, a theater, a luxury condominium, or a cruise ship. I don't know if you know it, he also designed the 81st Academy Awards and last year's Academy Award during COVID. And yeah, he did the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, the Cathedral of Moxie in New York. It's very emotional, and the story behind it could easily be seen with his work. I continued this storytelling approach when in my next two firms, which was Jeffrey Beers International and Johnson Studio. At Jeffrey Beers, we did the Atlantis Resort in Bahamas, and this one on 34th Street in Renaissance Hotel. Being on 34th Street, it's located in the fashion industry, so you could see that there's hints of fashion, and it's very highly influenced by it. And at the Johnson Studio, I'm currently working on another cruise ship and a few other restaurants that I fortunately cannot share at this moment, but we just finished this project, the Ambar Restaurant in El Paso, Texas, which won the 2021 BDNY Hospitality Restaurant Casual Cuisine. So it's based on Mexican themes, so you can see that the storytelling kind of brought us far into it and gave us that award. So here is a Spanish restaurant in Windstar Cruises that we just finished. Again, I was in the tail end of this, so I can't tell you much, but the firm is doing a lot of this type of design, and which attracted me to it. But it was at Jeffrey Beers that we first did my first cruise project. At first, we were kind of worried that we did not know anything about what it takes to design a cruise ship. Unlike you guys, I did not learn about cruise ship when I was in design school. We did not look into it until we were approached by the client. But as you can see from these images above, above here, you can tell that the difference, you can barely tell the difference between something that's on land and something that's on sea. You even get to work with famous cruise chefs in both locations. This is Bar Balud on the Upper East Side with Daniel Balud, and this is Curtis Stone, which is in the Princess Cruise Line, which it's called Share Restaurant. So a few clues that tells you like this is on the ship is because we can't do sheetrock ceilings on on a ship because of all the ventilation that's required. Everything has to be flat. So you kind of make use of every single space in that interstitial space. The other thing is all these wood is actually laminate, something that's frowned upon in the industry, but on a cruise ship, that's a given because of the fire codes and all that. So, so there are basically three things to know, at least from my experience, to be able to tell the right story in design. And this applies to whether it's a cruise ship or anything, any design problem, which is know the design parameters, know the budget, and know your customer. So know the design parameters. I think Jessica went through this last talk, which is codes. The most important things are health, fire, and life safety. Because of COVID, we're all aware of how health is utmost important and can actually shut down the ship. And cruise ships have been doing this a long time, long before COVID happened. You've heard people have Legionnaire's disease and all that. So they've been doing like hand wash stations right before restaurant in the entry of the restaurants. There's other stuff like what you see here, where sneeze guard, they're very concerned, like there's all these gaps that you see. This was a mock-up that we were looking at for Princess, and just things like that. And the having glass all around your the chandelier is something that the health department, actually CDC, or the USPH is the one that's we're actually governing or following, because it's the strictest. So even though there's different nationalities like that does cruise ship, everybody follows USPH's laws. Same thing with fire and life safety. There's the IMO. If you ask for your vendors for like fabrics and all that, there's an IMO certified, and that's about flame retardants and all that. So if you hear, sometimes you'll look at your vendor list, and then they'll that IMO certification. That means you can use it on a cruise ship, but that's very strict because everything needs to be approved by the shipyard. Another thing is structure. So I think the last time we mentioned, that the ship moves, so everything needs to be anchored and have railings like on bar displays. But one other thing sometimes we forget is the ship also bends. There's deflection on slabs, and we're aware of that, but on the ship, it's a little bit more noticeable. So that's why we can't have like big, large slabs. All slabs have to be less, like about 12 inches. The other thing is that the ship has to stay light. So we don't use studs. We don't use sheetrock. We don't use, everything is aluminum, and space is really, really important. So instead of studs that could go up to 6 inches, we use these aluminum studs like 1x2. So they're stronger, they're smaller, they're more expensive, but the space is a premium on the ship as opposed to cost. So the other thing to consider, or parameter that you should know, is the shipyard location. As I mentioned, the contractors or the ship is contracted way before the design is, and the shipyard's already part of the design process to begin with. So whether the top 4 shipbuilders are actually in Italy, Germany, and Europe or South Korea, and then Japan. I've actually been to Fincantieri and Meyer Werft. It's pretty nice to have a job site visit that's in Italy and Germany. So that's what, when you say a site visit for a cruise ship, because that's where you go. But that means that you would have to, one, design in metric. Everything is in metric. The other thing is that when you specify local materials, sometimes what's local for us is actually not local for them. So it'll actually be cheaper to specify something in Italy than from something that's from here. So, but the other good thing is that English is the standard language for all documentation. So you don't have to learn Italian for that. I know, Carol, you can speak Italian, but the other thing is know the budget. The budget is based on the contract, and ships have, what do you call this? So a set budget is determined early on the project for each space, but since it's like I said, it was contracted earlier on, there's no set money, and because of international, it's hard to say like it's $1 million or €1 million or whatever. So what they do is they give you a reference space, and like here, this was a Sabatini that was done on the first Royal class cruise ship for Princess Cruises. This was our reference space, and this was the design that came out of it. What we did was like for instance, here they have a wine display. We used the money that was used for this to design this piece of artwork. So it's an even, so this intricate design, ceiling design, rather we kind of think what's this cost would be and do something that's similar in cost, but looks something different. So something you hear that a lot when you design ships, which is what's the reference space. And doesn't mean that you can't go over it, but that's something that you have to discuss with the client. So, and then the third one is know your customer. Unlike other hospitality venues, such as restaurants and hotels and other modes of travel, such as planes and buses, you cannot tell whether one is going there for business or leisure, but on a cruise ship, everyone is on a vacation. No one is in a hurry to get anywhere. So they can have different reasons for going, a honeymoon, bonding with their family just to have fun, or, you're in retirement, but everybody's there to relax and above all, have fun. So each cruise line has their own demographics. Here it's all under Carnival. Actually, Carnival owns all these lines, but you can see there's the cost for a cruise ship could be low, moderate, or expensive. And just because the cost is low, doesn't mean it's something that's you spend a lot more money for the design. Like something like Seabourn, which is the most expensive, it actually caters to very wealthy people who travel a lot, and they're not into the theme party spaces. You don't go there for nightlife and all that. So just because it's the most expensive doesn't mean that you go overboard and make it the most expensive building or space you can build. So just knowing who your client is catering to is very important. So, like I said, everyone on the ship decided to take made this decision that taking the plane as a means from getting from one place to the other is not the way they wanted to go. They opted to go and have fun on their way going there. They're not going to stay and just watch a movie. They're going to, while they're getting to that destination, they can watch a play, go mountain climbing, go in a casino, watch a band, have a spa. Also, they made the decision that that they don't want to stay in a hotel. They're going to stay in a moving in the room where they can move. They're not going to eat at a local restaurant. They could eat in the local restaurant during the day, but at night when it moves or whenever it sets sail, they're going to eat in your restaurant. So it's a captive audience. That's what we're getting at here. And it's a decision that you're catering to that demographic or that clientele, which is they're on vacation. They want to be able to see something new. It's basically they've decided that they're not. By the time they get to the ship, the ship is their destination. They start their vacation at the moment they started traveling. It's not after they get off the vehicle. It's when they get on the vehicle. That's when the vacation starts. Oops. So this was my first project. I kind of showed you earlier. This was my first project on a cruise ship, which is a specialty restaurant on the Harmony Princess Cruises. I think Deshaun also worked on this, but you can tell it's my first project because the story behind this is not what else but water. Every first time cruise ship designer, that's the first theme that they think about, which is water. The story behind this event was the chef was supposed to be, they were supposed to have a reality show, and the chef was supposed to have, whoever that chef was going to get this restaurant as a prize. So we didn't know what cuisine it was, so that's why they let us use water for it. But so this one, so you can see like the wood fins have creates the waves, and then the chandeliers are made of water bubbles. But this is a one-off that we did in cruise ships. One thing about cruise ships that you should know is like it takes a lot of effort to design a whole cruise ship. So what they do is they take the ship, and when they order it, they order like 5 of it, and the next one they'll just change some 2 or 3 different venues or 4. They'll do some retrofit and renovate something to just differentiate it from the last one, but like 90 or 80% of it is the same ship. So here we were. This was the second class, and then or the second ship, so Regal Princess 2. And was named Harmony, and then that's what we designed the restaurant, which is Sabatini's, and then this next one was just a bistro, which we did for the following ship. We added this renovation to it, and this was a French bistro that we did on the upper deck on 3rd level. You could see here that the chandeliers is enclosed in glass. This was that mock-up that I was showing you earlier, when since we were putting bread in it, they were very concerned with all the gaps. But as you can see, this is something, as you know in the view, you could still feel like this could be in a land-based place. Your imaginations can actually, you can treat it as any other hospitality project. This was a challenging one. We also, you may have heard of the term dry dock in cruise ships or in any type. And that's basically they renovate the entire ship in 15 to 30 days, which is kind of crazy that they do that. But when a ship is decommissioned, they lose money. So and they can only put it you have to be in the shipyard to to make those renovations. So you can't, just staying in the shipyard costs money. That's why it has to be done in 15 to 30 days. So, so we have a limited time and we have to make decisions. So this was share, and this was what the space looked like before. So you can see like most of the ceiling is something you kind of keep because that's where all the MEP work is. And then all the mill work that's down here is actually done way before the ship gets there. So there's a lot of planning, but all of this was done in 15 to 30 days. I wanted to share a video with you, but since I left the company, I don't have that video anymore, but how they did a time lapse of how quickly they did this. But this is a really interesting project, got some awards. Share is Curtain Stone. His restaurants are mostly about him sharing his food to everybody and his family. So like on the columns, there's like pictures of his family. There's trinkets and some memorabilia from him. So it's very personal for him. And I think that's quite successful. I will now share with you this project, which is a whole ship that we actually did. It's not a retrofit like you saw the first two projects I did. This is the Costa Smeralda. This is the same company that owned Costa Concordia, which is the cruise ship that sank about 10 years ago. So Costa wanted everybody to forget about that, and this was their first ship that they were designing after that disaster. So rather than remember this, they wanted you to know that it's the most sustainable ship on their fleet, and it's the largest. It's actually the 5th largest in the world after, I think, the first were Royal Caribbean. So, so this is the first LNG powered cruise ship. It's kind of like a hybrid. It's clean gas. So it's something that they're pretty proud of, and that's why they kind of put out all the stops for this. And they hired Adam Tehani as their creative director for this project. So I don't know if you know Adam. Adam's like one of the leading top hospitality designers in the world today. I think same time like with David. So he's created signature restaurant for chefs such as Heston Blumenthal, Thomas Keller. He did Per Se, Danielle Balud, and John George. His hotel designs include the one and only in Cape Town and the Mandarin Oriental in Las Vegas. This was the Breakers also in Palm Beach. Adam has done multiple ships for Carnival. This is the Holland American line, the Koningsdam. And then this is the Seabourn, which is like the Ritz-Carlton of cruise ships, but it's a smaller capacity. This is on this ship, he only had one space, which is the Costa Museum, which is, and the reason for that was that he was, aside from being really busy, being creative director, he wanted to oversee everybody rather than just dedicating it to one space, or multiple spaces. So, but as I mentioned, and I quoted him before when I mentioned about storytelling, he's a big proponent of the importance of having a good story in your design. So he was kind of the director, and being the director, he was the one that set the story for this whole ship, which was to be Italy's finest. As Adam explained it, Costa has been an ambassador of Italian hospitality and culture to the world. It is a very well-known Italian brand that is frequented not only by Italians, but by travelers from across Europe and the rest of the world. This dynamic mixture of customers that Adam came up with the concept of Italy and Italia. Italy is the way the world sees the world, sees the country with like its buildings, it's what it's known for. And Italia is how the Italians themselves see Italy. So we did not look at it in just like the architecture of Italy. We also look at fashion, its vehicles, it's the movies, its artists. So we were inspired by everything that's Italy to get where we were. So we had four designers. One is Partnership Design, which is the ship architect, and they're based in Germany, Rockwell Group in New York City. Us, Jeffrey Beers, and then Dordoni Architect from Italy. So you have that Italian, the Italia, which is the locals. Here are the world, and then the Europeans are. So we're all represented here. As you can see, when we designed this is the ship, and this is the a section of the ship. So you can see that this is how they've divided the ship. So all like the red ones are Rockwell's spaces, the yellow ones are Jeffrey Beers, the blue ones are Dordoni's. No, actually Partnership Designs, and the green ones are Dordoni's, which are mostly the cabins and circulation spaces. Excuse me. Most of the public spaces are limited to the 6, 7, and 8. I didn't show the 7th one, or else you would not be able to look at it. And then the other public spaces are the 16th and 17th. Most of the in-betweens are all just cabins. But if you look at the way cruise ships are planned, you come in on the deck and you go through the elevator, and all these spaces are contiguous. There's no corridor that says, hey, this is your space, and there's no common corridor. You actually have to go through the space itself to go to the other spaces. The only common corridor I would say is like around the cabins. So there's the atrium that's here, which is that 3-story space you guys always see when you look at this ship. So I'm gonna go through first the spaces that I personally worked on, and Deshaun worked on. So if you don't like it, you can blame him. So we did these venues, which is the Lido Market up here, a specialty restaurant, a casino, a piano bar, the Grand Bar that's down here, and the Costa Flex, which is a large dining room. So this is the Lido Market, which is your buffet or all you can eat, your three meal restaurant for a cruise ship. And being able to, this is open all day, and being able to try to feed this many people it's kind of a challenge. So keeping them interested. And one of the things to remember, again, this is where vacation is, you want to vary the looks. And so having it all Italian, be based on Italy was kind of limiting it, but having all these resources, you kind of come up with a different story each time. I'm going to be sharing all as much as we'll have 20 minutes left. I'll be able to share, hopefully be able to share with you guys as much of our work as well as the other team's work. So this way you see how the whole ship is designed together. So here we have the pasta area and veggie area that's common. And then on the port side, it's the meat. And on the starboard side is the seafood. By the way, I call this port side, it's the top part is always, front is always forward is always to the right of the plan, aft is to the left, port side is here. It's called port side because that's where the port is usually is, and starboard because that's when you're looking at the stars. So you can see that we're it celebrates just not the food and that Italian food, but also the craft that's put together and the architecture and the patterns that we've as our inspiration. So this is the pasta area. You can see that we've taken the pattern on the floor. Something we actually changed this because we just found out that by the time we were in the approval process, they figured that it's when we did a mock-up, it's actually could be deceiving or dizzying when the ship moves. This type of pattern could cause some vertigo. So we had to change this, but the idea of this was the dessert, and then this is the pasta station, and the bread station was down here. This is the seafood section that's on, which was inspired by like the shells and the boats and from the Venetian boats that you see in the canals. So this has a very cool scheme to it. And then this is the meat area that's on the other side. So, which has all the leather finishes and leather straps and a much warmer palette to it. The next one is the Costa Club, which is that specialty restaurant. It's reserved for Costa Club loyalists. And it was inspired by the legacy of seafaring tradition in Italy's yacht building towns like Acero and Spezia. So used its inspiration Italy's finest yacht makers, which is Azimuth and Riva, and see how they have the chrome finishes and stripes, and together with the nautical palette and indigo of navy blue, we created this type of space. So it's more of like that traditional yacht that you would find, which is, again, it's garnered to make, it's catered to those who are longtime cruise members. So that's why we're using a long time tradition of what you expect to see in a cruise ship. So even the portholes, which are normally square, we made it round on this to give it that traditional look. This is the casino, and you actually transverse it to go from, this is the stair, come out through here or through here. So there's two entrances to it. And this was inspired by travel. And the reasoning for that is that in casino, you think about, hey, how do you say casino? You usually do glitz and gold and make it glitzy. But we were thinking that what most people do when they first get rich or have money is they want to travel. So, so we use the idea that Italians like their signature bags. And so these are all based on monogrammed design with the buckles at the end of the suitcases. So it's kind of like that, gave that look. This is the piano bar. It's kind of difficult. You notice this was the casino here. There's the a galley space and some mechanical spaces down here. So you have this kind of like weird space that you have to kind of work throughout. So instead of figuring out the circulation, we actually accentuated it and used a graphic approach to it. This was inspired by Gio Ponti, who's a famous Italian designer, and we created this whole interior for the piano bar. This is our backlit graphic design, graphic panel or wall. Their son actually designed this thing. So, and this is the bar on the other side. Again, these are Gio Ponti patterns, and you kind of have that cool hue to it, but has his patterns to it. This is the grand bar. One of the challenges of this grand bar is that this is the elevator lobby, so which kind of bisects the bar. So so to make it interesting, our theme was all about the movies and Italian movies. Like, these are scenes from La Dolce Vita. And to address that issue, we kind of put glass panels or mirrors on the walls. And actually, it didn't show on this rendering, but on the finished product, which you can see online, there's the images from the movies are actually alternating on these. So it feels like when you look at them, you're part of the movie scene. So, and this is a look towards the bar. One thing to note is that on a cruise ship at night, you don't see anything. When you look out, on the daytime, you have the view to see, you can look at, but at night, it's pitch black. So most of these are actually geared towards, especially all evening venues are geared towards the middle rather than towards the window. This is my favorite space that we did, which is Coastal Flex, which is actually what we call a residence. It's kind of hard to have a space so big that has to be dissected into different rooms because of the fire codes. Like, there's a fire wall here, and here. So what we had to do was we came up with a story wherein what's a place that had a lot of rooms, which is a house. So this is a house of an artist. So you come in here, this is the Galleria, there's Cucina, Salotto, which is the living room, Biblioteca, which is the living room, and Giardino, which is the garden. So this is the Galleria. So what we did here was the art was the one, we let the arts basically shine in this area. We added the red just to add for an accent, but it's the art that sings. And we had a great art consultant called called ArtLink, and they came up with this. They found an artist that took the classic Italian restaurant art and made it more contemporary. We also had artwork from Nisi that we used. This is the Cucina, and we also have interesting art here, like somebody took eggplants and make it look like shoes, Parmesan cheese like a handle. So it's pretty, art can actually help make the space more interesting. This is the Salotto, and behind that is the Biblioteca. So it's interesting to be able to make create all these different spaces, even though the story is that one story. This is the family restaurant that we have on deck 16, which was inspired by Portofino. In Portofino, they have all these different datum lines that are next to each other, and we kind of recreated that here. And then this is the shoreline, kind of representative of that. And these kind of these are kind of represented by the umbrellas that you see on the beach. So this was a fun space to be in. I think that's one of the most successful that we had, because it's right next to the pool that's right outside the deck. This is on the roof deck on deck 16. I'm now going to share spaces done by Rockwell. And they did a lot of the larger spaces, I would say, just because of their experience in theater and all that. So that they've also done several cruise ships before this. So one thing that they did here is they were doing the atrium, which is what they call the Colosseum, and the floor being it's a 3-story space. And what they have here is LED screens that transforms the space. So it could be a piazza and during the day, and could be something else at night. They have all these, they even have this little truck that, a Fiat that drives in with some gelato on the back for it, that goes and comes in and out. But the piazza pattern that you can see on the floor, and then you can see how this can then transform at night to a different space. And they even have a floor that raises up that can then transform into a bigger stage. So, and you can go have a club or a concert, basically. So this is the heart of the ship. And they spent enough money that they even made the entire ceiling all LED to be able to do all of this. So, and Rockwell just took, the architectural elements and put it in here. So it's not just all LEDs. You still kept the story as part of the architecture. And even on the outside of these areas, Rockwell used the Venetian windows as a pattern, because this is technically your window to the outside. This is a full story high space. So there's a glass, so atrium, and then they have these large fixture of glass. So I think you've heard about that, it's kind of hard to do a chandelier that moves, but this is all fixed. So you can do anything you want, just engineer it so that it doesn't move when that's why you have all these straps and structure that ties it back together. The other thing is on the upstairs, they based it on the Italian street lamps. And the other thing was this connects to the upstairs deck, which is actually based on Galileo. So since you're always looking at the stars, who else to base it from? Italy's most famous astronomer. Another restaurant that Rockwell did was the Grand Restaurant, which is the restaurant on the aft deck. These was 2 restaurants that are on top of each other. It's their biggest restaurant. It used to be a 2-story space, kind of like that space that Adam did for the Koningsdam. But because it's their biggest ship, they can't afford to have a big atrium inside the restaurant. So they made it 2 full restaurants with no opening in the middle. It's just connected by a stair. So to make the connection, they made it wherein the story connects to each other. One is AM, which is alta moda, which is called high fashion, and the other one's PM, which is pop moda, which is more like a pop of color. And you can see these two spaces, even though quite identical, has a very different feel to it. One's very colorful and one's very elegant and luxurious. So here's a good comparison of the two spaces. These are the entrances as you enter them. This is the runway look. So this, since it's on fashion, they have these, the main corridor that leads into the space. So they have chandeliers on this end, and on this side, they have screens that actually feels really great because they have a mirrored ceiling, so it feels like it's even higher than what it is. These are the side dining view. And they didn't just do large spaces, they also did small spaces. One of my favorite ones is this kids club. And the way Robert and Tana, who's from Rockwell, explained to us, says like Italian architecture is always pure geometry, circles, squares, and arches. And from early childhood, we are surrounded by these forms. So they took these Italian architecture, and made it so that it's understood by children and they could play with it and not be afraid of it. So I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to say these are the other architects, which is Dordoni. They did the cabins. Sorry. They also did the elevators and stairwells. And partnership design, which is they're the ship architect, they designed the ship. They also did they did some spaces. I mean, this was the plaza that's on top, and it has the Italian furniture and Italian architecture in the ceiling. So, sorry. I think the important takeaway is to make sure that you have fun with this thing. I hope that you, sorry, I'm just running out. My throat's really dry right now, but the idea is that, you know, if you're having fun, it's going to show up in your design, because remember, people here are here to have fun. So just make sure that when you design these places, have fun with it. Don't get pressured. Don't get, there's a lot of pressure, but be creative with it. And we had a lot of fun in doing it, and you'll have a lot of fun when it's actually built and you'll get on the ship and be able to share with your family. So hopefully you get to do it one day and be able to design your own and be part of this wonderful industry. So that's it. Thanks.